Good morning, this is Sean.
Morning, Sean. Do we have Clint on board also?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
All right, thank you. We have all three commissioners in our respective offices. We have our auditor's office at the desk to help us out this morning, Mr. Johnson, and we have Amanda at the computer controls this morning, and Shirley down on the phone. So with that, we will call this meeting to order for Tuesday, December 8th, our regular Tuesday meeting. We did not have one last week, December 1, because of lack of agenda. So with that, if you would join me to the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our first item on the agenda this morning is approval of minutes. We have a set of minutes for November 3rd and November 24th. If there's no additional changes or corrections, I will sign them as presented.
No change. I'm good.
All right, thank you. As everybody knows, it's been on the phone off and on. Our public comment period, the phone's numbers are listed in the agenda and on the screen in YouTube. The phones are open all during our board meeting. We'll take them as we can. And with that, we will move on down to, we can't open the public hearing yet, but we can maybe get well, I think we probably have to wait entirely, don't we?
Mr. Chairman, if I may interrupt you, I do have one caller on the phone, and I have a written submitted email comment.
All right, thank you. Please.
Good morning. Is this Lori?
Yes, yes.
Hi, Lori. This is Keith Johnson, County Administrator.
Hi, Keith.
You are in the Commissioners meeting, and you have the floor for public comment.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Yeah, I was just wanting to call and give a brief report to the commissioners and thank the commissioners, and also especially thank you, Keith and Shirley, for the opportunity to partner with Franklin County on the Franklin County Rapid Response Business Grant. I wanted to just provide a brief summary of how that program went. We had $600,000 to provide to Franklin County businesses. We had a plan to award $120,000 per week for 5 weeks. We received 137 total applications during the course of the time. The funds that were requested were almost $1.8 million. So there's obviously a great need out there from businesses. We had an outreach plan that we executed that included direct mail through the post office to 806 Franklin County businesses that included the application. We worked with 106 local organizations and asked them to help communicate this opportunity to Franklin County business owners. We hand-delivered 100 applications in English and Spanish to Franklin County businesses, and then we utilized our media, radio, TV, print, our website, social media, etc. We had an evaluation panel that met each week for the 5 weeks that consisted of an individual from the Tri-Cities Hispanic Chamber, the Downtown Pasco Development Authority, the Pasco Chamber of Commerce, the Connell Chamber of Commerce, a member, a employee of Tippett Company that's also a member of the Tri-City Regional Chambers Board, and our board president and myself, the president and CEO of the chamber. We awarded 64 grants. Of the 137 applications we received, we awarded 64 grants. 39 of those grants were awarded to women-owned businesses. 38 were minority-owned businesses. 5 were nonprofits, and 4 were veteran-owned. Our average award was $9,375, and our application scoring criteria that we used was put into place to determine those businesses that were in the greatest need. The average revenue loss year over year per awardee was 57%, and the average length of business closures due to COVID-19 were over 30 days. And so we just really want to thank the commissioners and again Keith and Shirley for the opportunity to partner with you and to provide the business assistance to those 64 businesses that were really negatively impacted. And would just like to offer that if there is more funding available in the future, that we think we have a really solid plan that we could, with really no time at all, be able to put this plan in place and execute on another round. I'd be happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners have, but again, we just wanted to thank you very much for the opportunity to partner with you.
Thank you, Lori.
You're welcome. Absolutely.
I do have one other caller on the line, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Good morning. Is this Clay?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Clay. This is Keith Johnson, the County Administrator. You are in the Board of Commissioners meeting, and you have the floor for 3 minutes.
Okay, I only need it for a second. I just think there should be no new property taxes until they're back in school. Kids are back in school, and things are, you know, working right, because this is just a joke. And why pay more money when, you know, it's just dumb. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Keith, this is Commissioner Peck. I don't know about the rest of you, but the audio on my end sounds like somebody's talking through a tunnel. Do we have extra mics on or something somewhere? And perhaps we could check. Thank you.
I wondered too, Commissioner, if maybe Lori wasn't talking on a open phone rather than, you know.
When the caller uses their speaker, sometimes it's very difficult to hear going through multiple rounds of technology. I recognize that last caller was difficult to hear. We could hear the volume, but the detail was difficult to pick up. But I think we had
both of the calls were really difficult. If we could just ask people to maybe turn their speakers off or something.
Okay.
Thanks.
I do have a written emailed message that I could read at this time if you prefer that, Mr. Chairman.
That would be fine, please.
It comes to us from a Justin Carey in Pasco. It says, Mr. Johnson, thank you for reading these messages to the commissioners. I am speaking in opposition to the raising of any taxes in this county for any reason. Thank you to Commissioner Didier for speaking out against this latest chipping away at the freedoms Americans enjoy and vowing to vote down any tax increase. Every new tax goes against freedom. We have seen many freedoms destroyed this year due to the governor and the health department. The mere proposal of new taxes is a slap in the face to businesses closing or suffering all over our area at the hands of the health department or liquor control, of which all the commissioners are aware. Please note that all tax increases statewide were rejected in the last election. Please note that the state legislature and governor are speaking about a statewide income tax against the will of the people. An added tax from the county only adds to the burden citizens have already spoken clearly against. Government needs to do with less, end all talk of greater taxes in Franklin County. In fact, find ways to lower our taxes. Thank you for your time. Justin Carey, Pasco.
All right.
Looks like I have one more caller on the line now.
Okay.
This George?
Yes.
Hey, George, would you mind speaking clearly into your headset or device? And
I'm on the phone.
okay, thank you.
All right.
Go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead,
All
George.
right. Thank you. So, okay, I'm calling in about this property tax increase. What's go? This is not the time to be thinking about it, to raise property taxes, to hire more county employees. Hey, what's going on? This is delayed about 30 seconds.
Yeah, there will be a delay in terms of you hearing it, so you probably need to turn your speaker off.
I can't turn it off. So,
Your radio.
you know, this is just ridiculous that we can't come down there and talk to the county commissioners in person and express our feelings. Everybody hides behind closed doors and a friggin' computer screen. You know, this is just garbage. But COLA increases, benefit increases, employee hiring, taxes increases at this time of the year, and what we've gone through and how little the county's worked is just garbage. And you guys need to put all this on the back burner until we can have true public meetings and be able to express our opinions and find out exactly what's going on. Thank you.
Okay, we have no other callers at this time.
All right. Well, that took up the time getting us into our public hearing for 2021 budgets. Let's see. Let me, Keith or Tom, or who's going to open up? We're going to open up for all four of these at once, and then ask for public hearing, or.
Yes, if we could open the public hearing, I'll let Tom Westerman from the auditor's office go first.
All right. Well, at this time, then, we will open the public hearing for Franklin County 2021 budget.
Yes, good morning, everybody. I just want to thank all the county staff and departments and administration for getting us to this point. You should be able to see on your screen, or some of you have a handout for our 2021 budget highlights. If adopted as is, it's still open to discussion and decisions, but currently, if the board were adopted today, this is how we're at right now. Revenues are at $40,940,000. As our expenditures to match, we have a balanced budget as presented. Included in that is the road diversion of 1.2 million, which is down 500,000 from the previous years of 1.7 million. That's almost a third. It does include the 1% levy, a substantial needs increase that the board has to describe. In my history here, we've only had 1 year where it has not been approved. And historically, we used to have a 6% per year increase the county always took. It was reduced down to 1%.
Speak close to the microphone. Just speak close to the microphone, if you would, please.
I'm not close enough.
Yeah.
Okay. So right now, the 1% is included in the adopted budget, even though it's not adopted, it just says it's adopted. And historically, it was 6% up until about, it was either 1996, where that measure was approved to limit the total tax collected at 1%. which isn't to be confused with everybody in the county getting a 1% tax increase. But right now it's in our presentation as adopted. Also included in this year's budget is a $7.5 million beginning fund balance. And that's our estimated actual right now. We also have a reserve amount of $500,000. That's if our budgeted fund balance goes above this. We have this in our budget to transfer to our reserve account. Right now, our reserves are about $1 million, and which we don't feel is a comfortable amount going long-term for a rainy day. So if we do have extra fund balance, right now it's presented at a board decision of being able to transfer that directly into our reserves without opening up our budget. Ending fund balance is projected at $4.463 million. So we're actually budgeting a loss, but historically we've been able to do that. And through salary savings and revenues being over expenditures somewhat, we've been able to get by with that. If you look at 1C, if you have this handout or look on the screen, these are the board decisions that we're looking for today primarily. There's a road diversion of $1.2 million. Like I said earlier, it's down from $1.7 million, which you've had at least the last 2 or 3 years. So it's actually a reduction of almost a third. I know there's been a lot of talk about increasing the amount given to roads, so we're headed that direction with the presented budget. There's also the 1% levy increase decision of $99,568. Now that's county-wide. I think Commissioner Peck once calculated out it's like a cup of coffee per homeowner or home family. So it's a modest increase. It does not keep up with inflation of 1.5%, which is the amount that is in our COLA estimate too. So even with that 1%, the county would be losing ground to being able to provide the services that the citizens are used to getting. As far as major revenues, we kind of went through property taxes. Right now it's 11,223,768, which is an increase of about 1.3 million over prior years. That also includes the 1.2 road diversion, the 99,000 substantial needs, and also new construction and other natural growth of 476,000. Another big revenue increase this year was our sales taxes going from 4.7 million to 5.1. And we feel that's pretty conservative, as this year we may even see $5.3 million in sales taxes. And we feel a lot of that's because of the COVID. We're actually benefiting because of some people perhaps not traveling, spending online, which our county benefits. So that was actually a surprise to us this year, and we're grateful for it. Other increases were to our first and 2% sales, criminal justice sales taxes by a little bit. One revenue that is going down is our room and board of prisoners. And because of the COVID, we're having less prisoners being housed because of the proximity of prisoners to each other. So that corresponds with a decline in revenues as well. So just as a memo total, just those main revenues, we're seeing an increase of $1.7 million. As far as salary increases, total increase over 2020 budget is about 700,000. Salaries of $14,728,000 and benefits of $6,587,000 contribute to that. And if you look, I'll just skip number 4, contingencies. But the COLA right now we're projecting if the board approves a 1.5% COLA that was suggested by the HR department through some comparisons. And that is currently in the adopted budget, as is the miscellaneous contingency amount of $250,000 for things that come up during the year that are not forecasted. So it gives us a little bit of buffer there for unseen expenditures. The next one is in number 6. It has to do with increases that were asked for this year. In personnel services, that amount totals to $320,000. That's currently in the budget. That includes a position in the assessor's office, a position for a budget policy analysis in the commissioner's office, a reduction in the clerk's office of a part-time person, 31,000, 38,000 with benefits. And it also includes the suggested change by the sheriff for our security services at a half of the year. So we would be using our correction and sheriff department to manage our security. And that's in that number as well. There's also a change from a deputy sheriff officer becoming a sergeant, which had some effect on that. The last one is just our grand total of our miscellaneous budgets. This includes county road, our motor vehicle fund, various O&M funds that departments have. And we're going to 66,192,290. This goes up from 59 million from the prior year. And basically all these funds are self-sustaining. They're not inside current expense. Some of them are related to current expense that we may have a transfer in or out to, but they're their own standalone funds. So basically that's it in a nutshell. I know the board has had the detailed look at that make up some of these changes. And so I guess I'm going to put it back to you to discuss where you want to go from here.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I appreciate the auditor's office in putting these documents together for us to follow. I think in terms of discussion today, it's probably best to kind of proceed in somewhat of an order. That the first item we need to discuss, because it affects all of the others, are those two items that Tom just mentioned, the road shift and the 1% increase. Just for the public's benefit, the 1% is available under state law. The board is not required to take it. We have, over the last few years, always taken that as a revenue for the county because of increasing costs going up higher than the rate of inflation and unfunded mandates that we have from the state. It's been considered a necessity. This year, because sales tax revenues are substantial and property taxes have been continuing to, the assessed values continue to increase, plus the new construction. It's up to the board to decide if they want to take the 1% or bank it for a future period. Then, of course, the other discussion, as you might recall, last year when we were adopting the budget, there was a stated goal of the board to try to reduce the amount of the road shift that took place. And we heard in the budget hearings from Matt Mahoney, the Public Works Director, of the impact that the road shift is having on the county road fund. Just in way of background, and I know you're all aware of this, many counties in Washington do use the road shift mechanism. It's perfectly legal under state law. It's generally considered a necessity to have some level of road shift because, as I mentioned, the mandates from the state and things that we're statutorily required to do, services that we're required to provide, end up costing more than simply relying solely on the current expense taxation model. And so we have historically used the road shift as a means of balancing the budget. But because of the stated goal of the board wanting to reduce that, I've suggested that we reduce it to 1.2 million. That is a substantial change. I would point out that that equates to a tax shift. It doesn't change the overall dollars that the county receives, but it does change who actually pays those taxes. The larger the road shift is, the more that residents of the county that live within incorporated city limits pay towards property taxes, and the less those that are in unincorporated areas pay. So if we reduce the road shift, it's going to have the effect of increasing taxes on those people in the unincorporated area. And I just want to make sure that the public and the board is aware of that question. I'm quite sure that the board is aware. but I want to make sure that the public is. So with that, probably best to kind of pause there and entertain discussion and questions from the board about whether the board feels the need to take the 1%, and if that $1.2 million road shift suggestion is appropriate and agreeable to the board.
Questions, gentlemen?
Well, Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Peck. A couple of observations and then an opinion as to what we ought to do on the 1%. I put together some tax examples for a couple of properties, one in the incorporated portion of Pasco in the neighborhood of Court Street and Road 84, just not anything special about that particular area, but I just picked a property that had about a $4,000 a year tax bill. And I picked a property out in the unincorporated Franklin County, north central part of the county, that has a relatively equal, about a $4,000 a year tax bill. And I ran through the calculation of recognizing that the county current expense budget, which is what we're talking about today, is only about 11 or 12% of the total tax bill that citizens see. And so when we take a 1%, it's 1% increase in dollars on that 12%. Think of it as a slice in a pizza, right? So of the entire pizza, the county's current expense is only one fairly narrow slice, about 12% of the total. And the 1% we're talking about only applies to that one slice. Now, to put it in real terms, for a property with a $4,000 a year annual tax bill, if you're in the city limits of Pasco, us taking the 1% would increase your annual tax bill by about $4.75 for the whole year. And if you're out in the unincorporated county where we have an additional road tax, it's about over $5 and under $6. It's never something that we're looking for to see increased taxes, but I wanted to put it in perspective. When we talk about taking the 1%, as Mr. Westerman said earlier, it is in the neighborhood at least of a cup of coffee at a drive up for an entire tax bill for the entire year. So we are fortunate this year that our growth in Pasco especially has added enough new properties and the taxes that come with those new properties, together with some other efficiencies, and together with the increase in retail sales taxes, all those things combined, even though we're really only talking $4 to $5 on a property in the neighborhood of about a $425,000 or $450,000 value property with an annual tax bill of about $4,000. Even if we take the 1%, it's a cup of coffee a year. And I just want people to know that when they see dramatic changes in their tax bill, it is likely either they haven't recognized that 65 to 75% of their taxes go to schools and those change regularly, or their property has dramatically increased in value. Say a piece of great farm ground goes from $10,000 a year value to $15,000 an acre value. That can drive up an individual's taxes significantly. And when that happens, someone else's taxes go down collectively a commensurate amount. So those increases are not the result of the county increasing taxes. It's the balancing or the apportionment of taxes across the county based on people's value. And when your value goes down, your taxes go down. When your value goes up, your taxes go up. But it's not due to a board action. It's due to the pot of taxes collected is one size. And if yours are going up, somebody else's are going down, then it's based on value, not on the county raising taxes. So with that rather lengthy explanation, I think we can afford to forego the 1% annual increase and bank it for use in a future year if it turns out we need it. It brings in some additional revenue for sure, but I don't see that it's essential. And even though it is only quite literally a cup of coffee over an entire year for a $4,000 tax bill, at least if nothing else, it shows an awareness and a responsiveness to concerns expressed by citizens. Frankly, it's not going to change anybody's tax bill significantly, and it's not going to change the county's revenue picture. I have thoughts on the road shift as well. I appreciate Mr. Johnson pointing out that the road shift is not just the amount of money that goes to roads or goes to current expense, but the tax obligation that follows it. So if you live in an unincorporated county, and we reduce the road shift as is proposed this year from 1.7 million last year to 1.2 million this year, the effect of that is that as the road shift goes down, those dollars go back to roads, and that tax burden travels with it to the unincorporated parts of the county. To put it more simply, as Mr. Johnson said, when the road shift goes up, taxes in the unincorporated areas go down. When the road shift goes the other way, when it goes down, taxes in the unincorporated area go up. So there's an inverse relationship there. The total amount collected is the same. It's a matter of who pays it. It's not unlike farmland that is in current use, where 60% or so of the value of that ground is removed before taxes are calculated. We do that to help the farm community and to help ag, which we recognize is a valuable contributor to our economy. But that 60% still gets collected. It just gets reapportioned to the rest of the taxpayers in the county. So the road shift is not the only dynamic where shifting can change the tax proportion. It also happens with current use land. So I'm offering all that not to stir anybody's pot, but to educate everybody as to what the realities are of the budget situation. I'm okay with the 1.2 shift. I think we ought to pass on the 1%. And if anybody's got questions about anything I've said, I'm always happy to answer them. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Didier, and I agree that we should not be raising taxes on the public right now in this time. Look, we've already taken the right steps, and that's why we've done unexpectedly well through this pandemic. That's why we're in the best financial position we've been in 20 years. Now's not the time to grow our local government. We should have the discipline to hold our position until we get through these uncertain times. I say we freeze salaries and we freeze hiring and any fee and revenue increases. And we put that all towards the road fund, or a portion of it to our rainy day fund that Tom has said we are underplenished right now. Because as I meet with our bosses out in the public, in the community, it is very clear that the public perception of these actions will be very unfavorable. One of the biggest mistakes I've seen in the farming community is that when a farmer, especially a young one, has a good year, they immediately go out and start buying new pickups and new machinery, only to experience a bad year the next year and lose everything. Now, government will never lose everything because it'll just keep putting the burden on the taxpayers. But right now, I think we hold our ground and we come through this thing in better shape even yet. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Peck, an additional thought, you know, it sometimes gets overlooked, but the county's financial health this year is really heavily influenced, driven, I would say, by the amount of new construction, and also the unusually high retail sales tax, which is, I believe, a result of changes in the law where things that are ordered online are taxed where they're delivered, not where they're purchased. And those two things really have improved the health of the county's fiscal state. What has hurt and will continue to hurt and will continue to keep us in a defensive posture financially is that the state legislature continues its practice of levying obligations on counties without providing the funding to execute those. And we had a win at the state Supreme Court this year over ballot boxes that the state legislature required counties to do, and that'll set a precedent for future actions against the legislature to make them pay for the expenses that they have placed on the backs of our county taxpayers. That really is the root problem here, and it's going to be a long-term fix, but people ought to know about it and know that we've made historic progress on it this year, and we'll be continuing to press on it going forward. As for increases, I would be interested in thoughts, Mr. Johnson, that you might have about our bargaining units and obligations that we may or may not have there with respect to salaries. Thank you.
Certainly, I'd be happy to address that. And I probably should have included that discussion regarding the proposed 1.5% COLA increase. We do have obligations to make sure that we are being fair in our labor practices and in our negotiations with the labor organizations that are that represent county employees. And to avoid the charge of an unfair labor practice, it's important that we make sure that we're taking care of our employees first and foremost, that we're not balancing the budget basically on their backs, as is often referred to. The cost indices say that we should be in the neighborhood of about somewhere between a 1.3 and a 1.7% cost of living increase to be consistent with the rate of inflation. And so I'm suggesting the 1.5% as an average that keeps us in line with the goals that were stated a few years ago when we put together our salary study of trying to keep our salaries and wages competitive in the market that we serve. We recognize that we're not the highest paying county in terms of county employees, but we're not the lowest either. And we recognize that we are in a competitive labor market with Benton County and to some degree Walla Walla County. So we do want to make sure that we can attract and retain quality personnel. And it's my argument that first and foremost, in terms of county services, requires competent professional staff. And I am fortunate that we have the staff that we do, but I want to make sure that we're doing what we can to retain them. And if we do not authorize competitive salaries, we will lose the best people to other jurisdictions or other employers, and the quality of our county services would suffer as a result. So my recommendation is to keep that budget item at 1.5%. That we believe will allow us to negotiate fairly with the labor unions that are still open, and also the non-bargaining employees and non-commissioner elected officials that serve the county as well.
Keith, this is Commissioner Didier again.
Yes, sir.
In talking to our constituents, which are our bosses out in the public, I think that it's more important that we keep the host that supplies our avenue to stay alive healthy. That is our businesses. A lot of them are not even able to open their doors and work to earn the money that we are allocating right here. We have to make sure we keep our businesses and the public healthy, or we will not have any income to spend. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Didier, that's very well said, and I couldn't agree more. I recognize that this does put an additional burden on the citizens of Franklin County with this recommendation. I will say from my experience in government and my professional recommendation that the department heads and elected officials have been very restrained this year and they're asking for additional funds. They have been conservative in their approach. There are a number of departments that would prefer to hire even more employees if we had the resources to do so. I think it's been fairly well documented that we are somewhat underserved in our law enforcement community with road deputies, making response times difficult. And the sheriff's done a very good job of maintaining that service in spite of the fact that he doesn't have a lot of staff out on the road at any one time. We have come precipitously close to a problem this year in our jail with jail employees contracting the COVID virus that required those healthy employees to work a lot of overtime and make sure that that problem was addressed. So my representation is that this is a reasonable and necessary request to add these few positions that we're adding to make sure that we can maintain the quality of service that we need to provide at the county level, not just in law enforcement, but also in other areas of the county, including county administration, the assessor's office, and I think I don't disagree at all with the philosophy of your approach, and think that we do need to make sure that the public needs are addressed, but there are services that are essentially necessary for us to provide that this will allow us to carry that function out. So thank you for your well-spoken comment.
Further comments from anybody?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Peck. I'm just kind of going back over my notes here, and I think you can summarize, at least from my perspective, where we're at, which is we're not increasing taxes. We are reducing the road shift. And we are honoring our labor contracts and agreements. And we are securing the means necessary to comply with our statutory obligations for operating a county. The opportunity for us to do significantly more, I think, rests in doing a full review of county operations, categorizing all the various functions that we currently handle, and identifying which ones are statutorily obligated, which ones are requested by the citizens, and which ones are in some way or another optional. I'm pretty confident I know what the outcome of that will be because I've done that analysis myself, but it's going to take that kind of an analysis for us to go through and eliminate entire functions within the county government if we are to make meaningful reductions in expenditures or costs. Simple way of saying that is if you want to make a meaningful reduction in our expenditures, we're going to have to identify some substantial activities or operations that aren't required by law and eliminate those. And I'm very open to anyone who can show me those functions that are not required by law that we're doing, that we can eliminate for substantial savings to the county. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
With that being said, I'd like to suggest one right here and right now, and that is anyone that opts out of our health benefits package would not receive that money in salary or would be reduced down to $400 a month in a health savings account. So the 70 people that are now going to receive, according to the increase of $1,030 per month in salary or health savings account, would be reduced to 400, would be a savings of $529,000 that we could apply to our road fund or to the rainy day fund. Thank you.
Thank you for that suggestion. That would have to work on through HR and be a future discussion. So would we have anybody else on the phone, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, I do have one caller on hold.
Because we're still on public hearing.
Mr. Baumann?
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Good. You have the floor. Good morning.
It's been a little complicated trying to figure out how to be in the field and be on the phone and listen, but doing the best I can. I had a question and then a statement. The question is, the agenda item today for raising taxes, how does that make it to the agenda? Is that something that one of the commissioners suggests, or is that something that, how does that get to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to respond to that?
Please, would you, Keith?
Yes, certainly. Yes, Steve, that is, if the county wants to take that 1%, then it's legally required that the board adopt a resolution. So the resolution before them is not necessarily an advocacy for that increase. It's simply for the board to make the choice. They can either pass the resolution or they can choose not to. But in order to enact the matter, it would require an action of the board through a resolution. So that's simply presented to them by my office for their option to consider.
So is that something that happens every year at this time of year?
Yes.
It's a normal thing that is, okay, I understand. So I appreciate that answer. So my statement would be, I think it's a very inappropriate time to raise taxes on the residents of Franklin County. We've been through we're going through a very difficult time for businesses as well as individuals. And everybody has had to tighten their belt except for the big box stores and Amazon, I think. Everybody else has had to tighten their belt. And I don't think it's unreasonable to ask the county to do the same. So that's my statement, and thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Anything else there, Keith?
Looks like I have another caller on. Good morning, George.
Morning.
Please go ahead.
Okay. What I want to talk about is the road fund. And the $1.2 million that you talk about is a reduction from the $1.7 million from last year. And I'd like to know, over the last 5 years, how much have we raped out of the road fund to fund the rest of the county? Our roads out in the county are falling apart. And I think the average resident out in the county would gladly pay his cup of Starbucks coffee every year to get more roads done and fixed up and repaired. If you want to cut something, cut the damn health department. All they do is go on TV and tell us how to act, and they don't even know what's going on. Every month they change their minds on how we're supposed to respond to things. I think this road fund needs to be restored. Just drive around out there in the county. You guys sit down there in a courthouse and don't worry about it because you live in town with curbs and gutters. That's all I've got to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. No other callers at this time?
No other, you say?
No, sir.
Okay. Any other comments, commissioners? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing then, and we have some resolutions to discuss.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Peck with a question for Mr. Johnson. I didn't make a note here that we officially opened the public hearing. I just want to verify that in fact we did. I just don't recall it, and because it's a necessity and a legality, I want to make sure we did.
I'm not sure. I'd have to go back to the recording, the exact words that were used, but I do believe the chairman opened the hearing.
Yes, I recall Chairman Cook opening the public comment because he made comment that now we are beyond the 9:05 mark and we can now open the public hearing.
Okay, thank you for verifying that for the record. I appreciate it.
So now, as I said, unless there's something else in the meantime, we have closed the public hearing and the discussion on the resolutions that are in front of you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just in way of clarification, because I don't know that all of the public has these resolutions in front of them, but Resolution 2020-284 is a resolution declaring the substantial need for the purpose of setting the limit at 101%, or that would allow us to take the full 1%. Resolutions 285 and 286 reflect the actual increase in inflation at 0.602%, which is a component of the 1%. So I want to make sure that we're clear on that. It sounds like from the discussion, however, that at least a couple of the commissioners don't feel that this is necessary for us to adopt these three resolutions, that the county budget could work without taking the 1%. But that's certainly something for the board to decide and discuss.
So, Mr. Johnson, Commissioner Peck, the resolution without the 1% is 2020-285, correct?
Correct. 85 and 86. One is for the road department, and one is for current expense. And
that was my next question. Which is which?
285 is current expense, and 286 is the county road department.
Okay, and what about miscellaneous budgets? We're going to treat that separately?
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, if it's appropriate and you're seeking motions, I'm prepared to move for action here. Is it appropriate time for you? You ready?
Please.
Okay, so with that, I move for approval of Resolution 2020-285 and Resolution 2020-286. The first being the current expense resolution without the 1% tax increase, and 286 being the companion piece for the county road budget.
For a second?
Mr. Chairman, I deflect from seconding because it states in here that this is a percent increase on our taxes from the previous year. 0.602% from previous year increase. Maybe Keith can explain this.
Yes, Commissioner, the Consumer Price Index only shows a 0.602% increase from the previous year. I'm not sure if I have the right indice, but it's the index that we use to measure the 1%. So the 0.602% would be a component of the 1%. In order for the county to take the full 1%, we would have to adopt also Resolution 284, which requires a finding of substantial need. So the preliminary step of adopting 285 and 286 just shows essentially the rate of inflation from the prior year. But you are correct, it would be an increase in taxes collected by the county.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, Commissioner Peck, I move for 285 and 286.
That's correct.
Neither one of which include the 0.6 or the substantial needs. Correct?
They include the 0.6. They do not include the remaining portion up to the 1%. That would require 284, Resolution 284.
Okay, so let me walk back through this again. 284 is the substantial needs authorization, correct?
Correct.
To go to 101.
Yes.
Right. So the correct motion, if we do not want to take the 0.6 or the substantial needs, we do not want to take any part of the 1% increase. The correct motion would be 2085 or 285 and 286. Is that correct?
No.
No.
The correct motion would be to
Would be no motion.
no motion at all, or a no vote on the motion to approve those.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to rescind my motion. My understanding from the previous conversation was that 285 and 286 affected the budget without the 0.6. And I want to thank Commissioner Didier for pointing that out, because even as I look at it here, the 0.62 is not standing out to me, which makes me think I may have the wrong copy of this particular resolution. Excuse me. The intent of the motion was to not take any part of the 1% and to keep the road shift at 1.2.
Well, let's go about it different. I'll go ahead and make a motion to pass 284, and then if there's no second, it'll fail, but at least show on the minutes.
Okay, I'll second for purposes of discussion.
Discussion?
Just that I intend to vote no because I don't want to take the substantial needs or the 0.6.
Right. That's what I was asking. So it's on the minutes saying that we are rejecting the substantial need and the county road and road department resolution. So we're rejecting all three resolutions.
Keith, I realize you're not a voting member.
I understand that.
Put us on.
I was going to say, I understand there's a motion now on the table, which probably calls for a vote. And based on the discussion I'm hearing, it sounds like there's support for all three commissioners to vote no. But that's just a clarification statement.
And just to be clear, the effect of this will be that we will decline the full 1%, both the 0.6 and the substantial needs.
That's correct.
And the effect on the road shift?
No effect on the road shift. That will be a separate
you.
motion.
That's okay, good.
Okay. Hearing no second, motion fails for lack of a second and support.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Peck did second it. We gotta take a vote.
Now,
That is correct. I'm just waiting for the vote.
okay, we take the vote then, all in favor? Hearing none, all opposed? Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay, aye,
Okay,
whatever you want.
yeah, I didn't hear anything, so,
For the record,
Sorry.
the noes have, and those three resolutions are not adopted.
all right.
So the next potential resolution would be a resolution to approve the road shift in the amount of 1.2 million.
Keith, what is the resolution number on that?
That would be 2020-287. Oh, you don't want to use 284? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, move for approval of resolution 2020-287.
I will second. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Didier. I truly believe we probably got this too far in front of the other items because we could reduce this road shift even more if the others don't pass. And I'm talking about the increase in salary, the increase in jobs, the health benefits that I brought up. There is so much more that we could do here to keep more money in the road fund because these roads are failing. Like Mr. Dockstetter said, I'm out there driving them every day.
That's a discussion that should have been going on all during this budget session. So with that, I will second the motion of Commissioner Beck. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
So noted. Hey Keith, what else have we got on the budget side? I'm not showing anything on the agenda.
Yeah, I guess the final question would be just the adoption of the budget. And I have resolutions drafted. They have not been formally presented to the board. We can do that today if you would like, or we can actually do that next week if you would prefer to wait for to actually see these resolutions in writing first.
Mr. Chairman, I prefer for next week so we can see these writings and the affiliate numbers to go with them.
I can't disagree with that. So we'll hold off on finalizing our budget till next week. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, gentlemen.
I guess I did have one question on the resolution that we reduced. This is Tom. That we reduced the budget by 100,000. Wouldn't that have included the 1% and the 0.6 of the 1%? We reduced the budget 100,000 in that particular resolution. And maybe I'm just confused, but I thought I basically declined any increase.
Yes. We have. Yeah, I have I have the resolutions adopted at $100,000 difference in anticipation that they wouldn't take it. That's what they'll vote on next week.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I mean, is that compute?
Not really. I guess that resolution that we prepared reduced it $100,000, which took the 1% out
Right.
in its entirety. So I guess I'm not sure why that wasn't. It seemed like that was the intent of the board, to remove the 100,000, which that resolution contained. So I guess I'm not clear why there's still a question, or if it needs to be reduced even more than that.
If what needs to be reduced? The
Well, we
budget
reduced
number?
it 100,000 in that resolution.
In which resolution?
I think it was the 285 without the 1%. One of the resolutions was $100,000 less.
That's correct, Keith. It's resolution 2022-85. It has a budget of $40,840,000, where the other one was $40,940,000, which is what created my confusion early on as to whether or not 285 and 286 were the right ones to eliminate the 1%.
My copies are 285 and 286 speak only to the previous year levy amount of the 0.602. Have I got the right?
Okay, well then,
Okay.
it appears that the copies I've gotten are older or not correct or something. I'm going to defer.
Yeah, that's the copies that are in front of me is what you speak of, Keith.
Okay.
In any event, it's clear that the intent of the board is not to take any part of the 1% and to do the road shift at 1.2. And if those resolutions reflect that, we're good.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe the 40,840,000 does reflect that. It's got the 1.2, no 1%.
Okay. And Keith, Tom, from your perspective, what is required between now and next week, or what is it that we don't have today that would allow us to finalize the budget?
Just having this resolution in front of the board in advance of the meeting. I don't have resolution.
And so it's a resolution that reflects what we've already approved.
Yes, it would establish the current expense budget at $40,840,000 and the miscellaneous budget at $66,192,290.
Okay, all right. So the effect of voting no on the available resolutions, I had hoped that maybe we would have one available that would cover both options. But that's okay. We can do it.
Well, I do have a third option if you wanted to take the 1%, but that was
okay.
That one's not going
All
to
right.
be presented.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Matt.
Yes, Matt.
I just want to add as well the benefit of approving everything next week is, of course, we were waiting to hear what the board's final decisions were going to be as far as the levy shift and any potential increases to the county road levy. That being said, we have some major changes that we need to make to our budget now, knowing what those decisions are. So we have to basically take out the 1.2 million plus remove from our preliminary budget the expectation of the board taking the 1% and any potential bank capacity. So that all needs to be removed. Plus, we need to provide the board with an additional document, which is the annual construction program and the major equipment purchases resolution, which is required in accordance with the WACs to be approved prior to the final budget. So I just wanted to add that we have a lot of work that we need to do internally to try to determine where we're going to make those substantial cuts based on, from our preliminary budget that we submitted and discussed with the board. So that's all I had to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Matt, this is Commissioner Peck. The preliminary discussions you had Were they based on a 1.7 road shift like last year, a 1.2 road shift as has been discussed, or a 0 road shift? What were you planning for?
When we submitted our budget, as I stated, we submitted it with no road shift and one, anticipating the 1% in any potential bank capacity.
And is that the process you've used every year?
Yes, that's the process we use every year. We don't go into it expecting, trying to guess what the board's going to do.
So the process you just described about going in and cutting things out is exactly what you've done for the last number of years.
Yeah, the last 8 years as I've been the public works director, that's correct. So.
Okay, I just wanted to see if there's anything different about this year than the last decade.
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Didier. So I would like to know what the census of the board is on growing the size of government. Are we in favor of adding positions at this time?
I'm not, because there's 2 of them that are needed. Okay. All right, that takes us into, unless there's a phone call,
Not at this time.
that'll take us into office business then, and approval of payroll.
Mr. Chairman, we've got one fiscal item this morning. This is fund expenditures. Move for approval as presented in a total amount of $107,787.33.
This is a second from Commissioner Didier, but this is not payroll, it's fund expenditure, correct?
Correct. I was going by just the top one on the
Okay.
agenda.
Okay, thank you. That's
So
a
that's
second.
like, say, fund expenditures for 107,787.33.
All right. And my motion was for fund expenditures, so we're good.
Yes, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we have to back up. Last week we did not meet. I did sign the vouchers so we could get some payroll done. Did you get the copy of these, Commissioner Beck?
I didn't see them. They may have been sent and perhaps I missed them. I don't want to say they weren't sent, but I have not seen them.
Yeah, okay. Well, why don't I,
If you'd make the motion, please.
okay. We'll start with, we've got a fund expenditure from 1130. Current expense at $389,385.87.
And those were fund expenditures?
Affirmative.
Okay, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have another fund expenditure from 12-1. Miscellaneous, current expense, clerk, LFO, jail commissary, etc. for $166,667.67.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry?
Third and final, this one is salary clearing and emergency management payroll. The sum total of $1,006,903.57.
Second.
All in favor?
Mr. Chairman, can I have discussion on that first before we vote?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think it's right that we in government are receiving our paychecks when so many people aren't able to work, and therefore I'm not voting for any more salary clearances until our community is open for business. I don't feel right taking money when they can't earn it.
Okay. Well, that can't happen, but, so noted. I have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just note that, refusing to act on a legal obligation of the county likely violates RCW 29A. I'll be voting for it. Anybody who wants to look that up, of course, can do so. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Okay. That was the final fiscal note we had. That takes us to consent agenda 1 through 4 as presented. We need approval of the consent agenda 1 through 4.
Yep, sorry, I had my mute button on. Move for approval of consent as presented, 4 items.
I second with no discussion.
All right. Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that brings us down to your item, Keith, please.
I think that's all I have for today was the discussion on the budget, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I got a response from you on the growing the size of government, but I did not hear from Commissioner Peck.
So, Commissioner Duda, you don't enjoy the liberty of just throwing in agenda items anywhere that you like. If you want to take it up under Commissioner comments at the end, we can have that conversation.
All right. Anything else for the good of the board? Anything else for the good of the board? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.